Well, the government has flagged that it's looking to reboot Australia's manufacturing industry as the disruption to international supply chains caused by coronavirus shows the country's reliance on China, and Victoria's Treasurer has sparked outrage after suggesting Australia had vilified China by pursuing an independent coronavirus inquiry. Joining me now, Australian Strategic Policy Institute Defence Program Director Michael Shoebridge. Michael, we might kick off with that imbroglio that's beset the Labor Party. We've got some federal Labor MPs who have had a crack at Tim Pallas for his comments. How do you think that's played out within the Victorian community?
Well, I think the Australian public is way ahead of some of our elected representatives on the risks in deeper economic tie-ins with China, because they have been noticing the coercive behaviour that we've seen. You know, you don't have to be paying too much attention to know that their ambassador made threats, and now we have an 80% tariff on barley, and there are other threats foreshadowed. So the public understands the risks of deeper economic types with China, and the federal Parliament does too. There's been strong support from federal Labor leadership for Prime Minister Morrison's handling of the relationship and his work to get a credible international inquiry into the pandemic up, which we have achieved as a country. But some parts of federal politics, and I think the Victorian Treasurer is an iconic example at the moment. The ghosts of Christmas past on China. They're still talking as if we haven't been coerced and as if China's economy is on the growth track it was before the pandemic. And both those things are wrong. So I think the Labor Party has to align itself federally and with the states.
Michael, do you think there's any chance of further sanctions from China?
Well, they're not sanctions. This is flat out coercion. And yes, in one way, they really will put, what they call technical issues in place that stop our exports going into the Chinese market. But let's remember another thing. The Chinese government's looking a bit like they're running a Wild West film set from an old American movie. There's lots of front, but when you look behind, their economy is tanking. Their whole middle-class consumer demand isn't there. So Egyptian oranges, Peruvian avocados, and wine, dairy, oats, all these things, the Chinese consumers are not buying them. So there's a level of pretense from Beijing saying, I'm punishing you by dropping how much we're buying. Their consumers are simply not buying because China is in a recession. That's the bigger picture here.
There's been a lot of debate about hitting the reset button on our manufacturing industry and taking advantage, if you like, of the fact that, the whole way in which we look at our economy and the recalibration of our relationships, our trade relationships, is important. What do you think the opportunities are that present themselves in the wake of this? I mean, for example, is India and Indonesia now good opportunities for us to look at?
Absolutely. In fact, we were making them opportunities before the pandemic. So the free trade agreement that the government finalised with the Indonesian government opened up their higher education sector, opened up joint manufacturing partnerships, and certainly a whole lot of cooperation on agriculture. And I think that is a great opportunity for us into the future. And now we're hearing that there'll be a virtual summit between India's leader Modi and the Prime Minister, and they will be working together around trusted supply chain cooperation on things like critical minerals and around the agriculture sector and energy as well. So this is because we're all realising that those vulnerabilities in these vague global supply chains, most of which wend their way through China, are unacceptable now because of the risk in the Chinese economy and because of the extra risk from a coercive Chinese government. So we'll see those markets grow. They'll take time, but so did the China market.
Just from a national security perspective, you know, how prescient right now is the fact that the Chinese seem to be quite expert at their cyber attacks and their cyber hacks, and we know that there's been strong links to the census hack from a few years ago. Do we have to be particularly careful now?
Well, absolutely. Let's remember it was February last year that the Prime Minister stood up in the federal parliament and said that a cyber actor had hacked into the Parliament's information system and into the information system of a number of our major political parties. It was later leaked to Reuters that that cyber actor was the Chinese state. So we know, they have form. In fact, it was 2011, the last time the Parliament was hacked. Again, it was a Chinese state hacker. The outgoing head of ASIO said that foreign interference from China in Australia's political system was at an all-time high. So none of that's gone away. In fact, it's accelerated with this reasonably outrageous wolf warrior behaviour from their official representatives, like their ambassador here in Canberra.
All right, Michael Shoebridge, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.